Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Monday. We are back from the weekend. Your reward is 2 hours of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and of course, on our streaming video channels, our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis will be in a bit. Brendan Dworzynski is off today. However you're enjoying the show, thanks for being along for the ride on this Monday. And maybe it's a good thing we only have 2 hours together today. Royals baseball tonight in Cleveland, 5:40 first pitch. So we're off the air on 580 Sports Talk at 5 to hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network. We've only got 2 hours today. Maybe that's a good thing because, boy, howdy, did that weekend of football suck. Right? I know we got some Mizzou fan listeners that might beg to differ, but that sucked. That was our first full weekend of football here in the Sunflower State, and it sucked. There's nothing good to say. The Chiefs lost and did not look good doing it. Patrick Mahomes did. It kind of feels like they're hanging him out to dry a little bit. KU, great start. Not so great finish. They lose the border war. K-State, the annual now inexplicable home collapse, is a double-digit favorite. You can set your watch to it. It's as reliable as the tides. K-State blowing a game as a double-digit favorite at home. That was not fun. That was not a fun first weekend of football. And again, only 2 hours to talk about it today, but we will get to it all here on 580 Sports Talk. Mark points out the only team locally that did good was the Royals in the YouTube comments. Mark H points that out. Yeah, the Royals, they won Friday and Saturday when nobody was paying attention. And then on Sunday, it's like, oh, hey, look, the Royals are on. They're a game out of a playoff spot, and they get beat. It was just that kind of weekend. The kind of weekend that makes you wonder, man, maybe I don't want to be a sports fan anymore. It was one of those. But hey, we'll grin and we'll bear it and we'll get through it together on this Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We will talk Chiefs. We will talk K-State. We will talk KU. We'll talk about the rest of the football weekend at large. Again, long way to go and a short time to get there. We're with you until 5, so we'll sprint headlong into it on this Monday. We'll also have Matt Verderame join us at the bottom of this hour to make some sense of week 1 of the NFL season, including the Chiefs' opening loss in Brazil on Friday night to the Chargers, plus the rest of the week's NFL action. We'll do What Is Wrong With You. We'll do Good, Bad, Ugly from the weekend. We'll have some fun, some moments of levity, we hope. And, of course, we want to hear from you. As I mentioned, the YouTube comments. If you are watching the show on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We keep seeing that number go up, which we love to see. Next week, we're a week or so away from the arm wrestling match that has been promised and highly anticipated between myself and Brendan Dworzynski. We will do it on the show. We will do it live on camera. We'll pick a day. We'll pick a day this week and let you know when. We're going to do it next week. That is my promise. It will be next week. But get us closer to the next stretch goal, 900. By subscribing today, if you have not, to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Hop in the live chat, interact with the show, interact with your fellow listeners. Mark H is in. Trevor, our resident Mizzou fan, of course, he's in early. You knew he'd be in. I bet he had an alarm set on his phone to make sure he got in with some comments early on today's show. We want to hear from you on the text line as well. 785-272-9429 is the text line. That is 785-272-9429 if you would like to communicate with us via text. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it because, again, we got a lot of spleen to vent. We got a lot of questions to ask. We have only 2 hours together, so let's not burn any more time, right? Chargers 27, Chiefs 21 in Sao Paulo on Friday. Chiefs start 0-1. They are all alone in last place in the AFC West, though it must be said that neither the Raiders nor the Broncos, especially the Broncos, were particularly convincing in their Week 1 wins against bad teams. So it is far from time to push the panic button in the AFC West. But I think that one thing that we have kind of assumed, and that I think was made even clearer in Friday's game, is that the days of just assuming 5-1 at worst in division play for the Chiefs, those days are gone. That is not happening this year, in all likelihood. 5-1, you got to run the table from here. Feel real good about that right now? You feel really good about winning all the rest of the division games? I don't know. Again, neither the Raiders or the Broncos were any great shakes, but those are obviously better teams than they've been and more well-coached than they've been. That's a big part of why the Chiefs have been able to do what they've done. A big part of why the AFC Championship has been the Arrowhead Invitational for so many years is because the Chiefs could count on 5 or 6 division wins in a way most teams could not. And I don't think you can count on that this year. You're already 0-1 in division play. And I guess I'll start with this. Be frank with you folks, I did not watch the game live on Friday night. Obviously, I was doing high school football that night. Great game, Rossville Silver Lake. We'll get to that more in the good, the bad, the ugly. So I rewatched the game after the fact, and I got to read about the game, and I got to hear Andy Reid's comments about the game before I went in to watch the game. And I will say that I expected to be less impressed with the Chiefs' performance than I was. I expected it to be a little bit more doom and gloom, and that's natural, right? That's everybody's reaction in the immediate aftermath of a loss. And I watched the game a couple of days later. I thought what we ended up with was a pretty darn good quarterback shootout in Sao Paulo, with Patrick Mahomes playing at a very high level, but Justin Herbert playing better. And again, quarterbacks don't play against each other. So, Charger fans are going to get off that Herbert's better than Mahomes or Herbert outplayed Mahomes. Herbert against the Chiefs defense was better than Mahomes against the Charger defense on Friday night. That is a fact. That is a fact. That is indisputable. So you can start with that. But the big reason the game unfolded the way that it did was that the Chiefs came out flat. And Andy Reid said as much in his post-game remarks. I don't have any idea how you are the team that lost the Super Bowl last year, that missed out on your chance at history, that told everybody who would listen, there's no Super Bowl hangover. We're ready for this season. We're back to business. We're back to work. And then come out lifeless in the first quarter of that football game and fall behind and have to spend the whole game chasing. And then when you do have an opportunity to level the terms, Harrison Butker misses an extra point, which he never does. And you're chasing and chasing, and you never stop chasing. But look, how many times do we see the Chiefs win this game over the years? How many times do we see the Chiefs win games like that one last year, where something went wrong, where something doesn't feel quite right, but hey, it's a one-score game at the end, and the Chiefs defense gets the stop it needs, or the Chiefs offense gets the score it needs, and the Chiefs end up winning the game. Followed that script all the way to 15 wins in an AFC championship game last year, right? Well, somebody forgot to tell the Chargers what their role in the script was. Because Justin Herbert scrambled for however many yards it was on that 3rd and 14. I stopped counting after 15. You probably did too. And that was the ballgame. That was it. There was no stop, then score. It was just done. It was the Chiefs on the wrong side of a one-score game. It was the Chiefs getting out-executed. It was the Chiefs getting out-game-planned. It was the Chiefs starting slow and having to chase and not being able to catch up. Felt very unfamiliar in that way. It felt, I guess, if there's one word I would use to describe that Chiefs performance, it would be unfamiliar. That did not look like a brand of Chiefs football that I particularly recognized, especially on the defensive side. They looked out of sync, and they did not look like the best version of itself. The safety group in particular did not play well. Shamari Connor, that was grim. Brian Cook is just kind of out there getting some cardio in. Jaden Hicks got beat for what ended up being the game-sealing touchdown. The pass rush, a complete no-show. Other than blitzing, which saw Drew Tranquill pick up a couple of second-half sacks. Four-man pressure got nothing done against a Charger line that, again, is missing their best offensive lineman in Rashawn Slater. And their third best offensive lineman, Mekhi Becton, was taking oxygen the entire night because he was sick and he could barely play. And we all thought, we talked on Friday, this should be a major advantage for the Chiefs, a major advantage in the trenches. They should be able to get some pressure on Justin Herbert. And they never did. They never did. And again, you do have to tip your cap to the Chargers, and you do have to tip your cap to Justin Herbert, who played about as well in a single football game as I've ever seen him play. But yeah, this is the flip side of, you know, how a lot of teams probably felt against the Chiefs last year, where, hey, you know, we didn't play that bad. We just ran out of time. We didn't have the ball. They made the play and they executed. All last year, that was the Chiefs. That's how they went 15-2. There were games where maybe they didn't quite deserve to win it, or maybe they weren't clearly superior, but they got the stop and or they got the score. And at the end of the game, at the end of the 60 minutes, the Chiefs had more points. It kind of felt opposite and unfamiliar in that way for the Chiefs. Now, look, the Chiefs lost the opener 2 seasons ago at home, right? They lost the Lions in the opener at home, banner night, Thursday Night Football. They lost that game, and they ended up being fine. It took them a while to get to fine. It took them until about January to get to fine. So, look, we're not pushing the panic button at 580 Sports Talk headquarters regarding the Kansas City Chiefs. But they lost that opener because of things at the time that we looked at and said, that's very uncharacteristic of the Chiefs. And then it became characteristic of the 2023 Chiefs. In particular, the dropped passes, but lots of other things became characteristics of that football team over time. So we'll see if some of the negatives from Friday night's performance, the slow start, the limited pass rush, struggles again on the offensive line. Jalen Moore, get ready. Be ready. Stay ready. It can't be that at right tackle for a whole lot longer. Josh Simmons, I thought, gave as good as he got in his first NFL start. Jawan Taylor was god-awful bad. As bad a game as he's ever played in that uniform. And he's had some howlers. Kingsley Suamataia forgot to block Khalil Mack on a 4th down play late in the game that almost ended the game and was bailed out by a moment of Mahomes magic and that brilliant downfield throw to Hollywood Brown that set up the field goal. Fits and starts, let's say, for Kingsley in his first game at left guard this year. But Jawan Taylor was horrid. So we'll see if all of that stuff becomes characteristic of this team. I think they have enough equity in the bank that you can believe otherwise and feel pretty good. But this is the one sample we've got for 2025. And it wasn't good enough. It was not good enough to beat a division rival, to beat a team that the Chiefs have gotten the better of. Not routinely, you wouldn't say, but there have been 8 previous one-score games between Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and the Chiefs have won 7 of those 8. And any reversion in one-score games by the Chiefs, forget winning the division, they're going to probably be in a spot where they're maybe thinking wild card. If there's a significant reversion in those one-score games. But again, it's too early to say this is a characteristic. It's just what it was on Friday. What it was a slow start. It was a flat performance. It wasn't good enough on defense. Pass coverage too routinely shredded. Pass rush non-existent. And the Chiefs offense, I actually thought was fine. I don't have any gripe with the Chiefs offense. They started a little slow. They had to probably tear up a good portion of their game plan when Xavier Worthy dislocated his shoulder running into his own teammate. Like, it's hard. Ask Kansas State how it goes when you have a game plan which heavily features probably one guy, and then you lose that one guy like in the first quarter. Ask K-State back at Iowa State how that went for them. What that meant to having their offense take a long time to find a groove. That part is understandable. But once they did, the Chiefs scored on their last 5 possessions. And Mahomes was great. Like, I don't have anything to complain about number 15. Maybe number 15's got some complaining to do. Maybe he feels like he's got to be Superman. But I thought Mahomes and the offense, like the running game, I thought looked fine. You couldn't really go to it because, again, you're chasing the game the entire second half. And when you're chasing, you put the ball in your best player's hands, and that's Mahomes. But I thought the running game was okay. There were a couple of nice plays for Isaiah Pacheco. Travis Kelce didn't get real involved, but did catch a touchdown Hollywood Brown looked spry, which was good to see. 16 targets for Hollywood Brown is insane. I wonder if he ever even got 16 targets in a game at Oklahoma. Juju Smith-Schuster had a couple of plays. Like, all is not lost by any stretch of the imagination. But that is not typically a team that comes out of the gate slow in a game, never mind in a season. And that is not typically a team that loses those one-score games. They find a way to get a stop. They find a way to get the score. They find the way to win. And they didn't on Friday night in a way, again, that felt very unfamiliar. I do want to address, there were a couple instances, very visible instances of Chiefs players being frustrated with each other. Travis Kelce getting in Jawaan Taylor's face or the back of his head, whichever you prefer, however you want to interpret that particular exchange between the veteran tight end and the right tackle. Also, at the end of the game, there was obviously a sideline dispute between Chris Jones and Drew Tranquill because Chris Jones lost contain on Justin Herbert on that third and long scramble that sealed the game. I don't know what that was about between Tranquill and Jones, and we'll never know because Tranquill dismissed it, downplayed it, and Chris Jones commented it after the game. But I bet I know what it was about. That was a selfish play by Chris Jones. That was a play where Chris Jones is thinking about getting a sack. And again, how many times have we seen it? Chris Jones gets the big third down sack, forces a punt, Chiefs get the ball back, go down, score, win the game. We've seen it countless times. That was not the spot for Chris Jones' bull rush. That was the spot for Chris Jones to rush in his lane, force Justin Herbert to make the throw down the field to beat you, instead of giving him a wide open half of the field. And Chris Jones knows. He knows what the call is. He knows what the formation is. He knows better. That was selfish of Chris Jones. That was him looking for the sack and not thinking about making the play within the team construct. And I guarantee you that's what that discussion between him and Tranquill was about. I would bet anything that that's what that was about. I don't think that those incidents necessarily, those moments of frustration that were visible that we could see, I don't think that they mean anything big picture. But nothing means anything until it does, right? You have one game that is our 2025 sample. I understand the frustration on that last play. I understand Travis Kelce's frustration with Jawaan Taylor. And listen, I understand Travis Kelce is going to hold his teammates to an extremely high standard this year because he's only playing football this year to go out and win another ring before he's done. This is probably his last year. So you could see some of that with Kelce being frustrated with his teammates, that you're not upholding the standard that we need to uphold to win a ring around here, which is the only reason I'm doing this in the first place. That's why I'm here. So it's good. That's a good thing. Guys are competitive. The standard is high. Those are all things that you want. But sometimes frustrations can bubble over, and sometimes those frustrations can be emblematic of a group, particularly a veteran group, that thinks maybe things are getting away from them a little bit. Maybe that standard is slipping for whatever reason. So it bears monitoring, but it's not anything I'm going to panic over. Again, it's not a panic button loss, but there was a lot not to like on defense. That's got to get a lot better. Pass rush has to be a lot more impactful. Safeties have to play a lot better. I think getting Trent McDuffie back into the slot when Christian Fulton is fully active is going to be helpful. Offensively, they say Xavier Worthy's day-to-day. It's good news. Doesn't sound like he's going to need surgery. Sounds like we'll see Xavier Worthy again at some point this season. I would bet not Sunday against the Eagles, but hopefully it's not a long-term absence, and Patrick Mahomes is once again looking at a scenario where his top two pass catchers are out for an extended period because he's already without Rashee Rice for the next 5. But that feels like an offense that is saying to Patrick Mahomes, you got to figure this out, man. You got to go do it. And there are worse guys to ask and go do everything, but it's a big weight on his shoulders. And I don't know how sustainable it is to ask your quarterback to be everything, to be your leading rusher. Just ask the Bills. That's what they've asked Josh Allen to do for years. How sustainable has that been? Once it gets to January, it isn't. So Yeah, definitely some concerns, but the panic button will remain untouched, at least around these parts. Some comments from the YouTube and from the text line. We got one from the text line from 785. They should have cut Jawan Taylor last year. Mark A says they need to find someone better than Jawan Taylor. Andrew says he won't be starting by November in the YouTube comments. I would be very surprised if Jalen Moore's not getting some extra reps over there at right tackle. They might. They got a $15 million tackle backing up a $22 million tackle. The $22 million tackle doesn't carry his weight. Like, this isn't like going to the Oak for Wanye Morris. Like, they've got a real option if Taylor can't do the job. And one night in, wasn't up to the job. That was very obvious. Get your text in, 785-272-9429. Thoughts on the YouTube chat. YouTube channel's 580 Sports Talk. We're going to do good, bad, ugly after this timeout. We'll talk to Matt Verderame. Still got plenty of college football talk in the 4 o'clock hour. Only had 2 hours today. We're off at 5 for Royals baseball. So thanks for hanging with us. We appreciate you. And we're just getting started on this Monday on 580 Sports Talk. the ugly from the weekend that was. I'll start with my good. Another banger in the war on 24. Silver Lake and Rossville put on another show. The third time in 4 years those two programs have gone overtime against each other. This time, for the first time in 4 years, it was Rossville with the win, blocking Silver Lake's extra point in overtime and making their own for a 28-27 triumph. Feel good for those Rossville seniors who get to claim a win over Silver Lake after being 0 for their first 3. Silver Lake's going to be just fine. Their freshman quarterback, Kipton Kruger, was special in defeat, leading the game-tying drive in the final 4.5 minutes. But it was a great one, as it always seems to be when the Eagles and the Bulldogs get together for the War on 24. Another privilege to call that one as our 580 Preps Game of the Week over on Country 106.9 on Friday night. So that was my good. Spencer Dupuis, what was your good?
My good is if you followed my bit for my picks from Friday, that means my teams I cheer for. You got 2 out of 3. Can the Deebo Samuel wash people leave the building? Because 19-yard end-around touchdown, anytime touchdown hits, Commanders don't allow a score from the Giants, win 21-6. Sloppy offense, but the defense played well.
My bad. Nobody enjoyed the football around here all that much with the Chiefs, KU, and K-State losing. Washburn lost to Northwest Missouri State. That was a drag. Just a bummer of a weekend of pigskin for the locals here in Northwest Kansas. So that's my bad.
Yeah, my bad was every game on Saturday I laid my eyes on that included teams in which either I cheer for or cover they were losses. We'll have more on that in my ugly.
So the ugly for me, go ahead and do your ugly then.
All right. So I was watching the Marshall game on Saturday and heard a random cheer in the background. About the same time on Twitter, I saw that West Virginia had lost at Ohio. Marshall put the game on at their game, put the last 5 seconds on. There was mass cheering for West Virginia to lose. And then Marshall proceeded to not score another point and have like negative yards. So you got to stop trolling West Virginia unless you can win against a team that was FCS last year, Missouri State.
My ugly is the woman who has gained renown on social media as simply Phillies Karen. Perhaps you saw the clip from whatever they call it, Lone Depot Park there in Miami. There was a scramble for a loose home run ball. Dad grabbed it, gave it to his kid, and then some old hag came up and started screaming at the dad and the kid and about the ball. And Dad finally said, "Here, take the ball, whatever." The Phillies did right by the kid. So did the Marlins, really. The folks at Lone Depot Park saw it happen on closed circuit TV, gave the kid some goodies, and the Phillies made it right, too. Kid got to meet the guy who hit the home run, Harrison Bader. So all was well that ended well as far as that goes. But if you're that woman, how do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night knowing that the whole world saw you harangue a 10-year-old and his dad into giving you a baseball? It's just a baseball, man. It only means what you decide it means. Anybody can go buy it. Go buy a baseball. You lost out. You didn't win the scramble for the ball. You lose, tough break. You're going to go and the whole world's going to see you show your ass like that in the stands at a baseball game, chew out a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's these days was with foot cameras and phones. Like it was literally on social media, clear up. Like you could see her picture. She might have, she's getting hate mail, or she's probably getting people finding out her address.
Yeah, there are people who are having to go out and say, actually, this is not me. There are businesses, a school district had to come out and say, no, this woman doesn't work for us. I don't know who you think it is, but it ain't our employee. Also, though, I do have to say, the dad kind of gave in a little too easily. I would tell that old broad, you want this ball? Come through me. Come through me and see what happens. And Dad, I understand the dad being exasperated and not wanting to make a scene, but listen, if that woman wanted to be seen taking a baseball physically from a 10-year-old, do it. But get through me first. That's how I would have played it. It's easy to say that. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback something like that. But come on, Dad. Stand up for your kid. Little bit more rigidly than that. That old lady can get through you. All right, that's our good, the bad, the ugly. We got to talk to Matt Verderame, talk about NFL Week 1 next on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated and SI.com, our NFL insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt also appears on that football show on the KC Sports Network and has his own subscriber-only Patreon, the Matt Verderame Show. Joins us every Monday at this time for our weekly check-in on the NFL. And Matt, what was most distressing to you about the Chiefs' performance in their season opener against the Chargers on Friday night?
That the defense played like they were in a coma for 60 minutes. I mean, look, there was no urgency. I thought Tranquil, he blitzed well, but they couldn't cover the middle of the field. Bolton and Connor took turns just getting exposed in the middle of the field. I think at some point you've got to go to McDuffie in the slot and just say, look, we're going to play Fulton outside, which, by the way, when they acquired Fulton, talking to people around the team, that was the reason. It was so that McDuffie could kick back inside. And then they went into game one, and look, we all understand Fulton's coming back from the knee, and maybe they wanted to kind of ease him in. I understand that. But when he's not on the field, McDuffie's outside. And that is a catastrophe for this team. They cannot live with Chamari Connor in the slot. So you factor that in with a non-existent pass rush when they weren't blitzing, and all of a sudden you're in this game where, look, Mahomes, the first half, the offense did nothing. I think once they adjusted to not having Worthy, to their credit, they were fantastic offensively. Mahomes doing everything he can do. But now, you go into this game against Philadelphia where you don't have your top two weapons, and you have a defense that better find their game quick, because if they don't, they're going to be 0-2.
You mentioned that the middle of the field pretty routinely open for the Chiefs. The safety group, Brian Cook, Jaden Hicks, Chamari Connor, they've had better days, all three of those guys combined. Do you think it was schematic? Do you think it was maybe these guys weren't quite ready for prime time? Was it all energy and life, as you put it? What do you think the flaws of that back end of the defense were mostly a result of?
I think it's a combination like it normally is. They had a lot of communication issues. You go back and watch that film. I mean, there were 4 or 5 plays where one of the safeties was just slamming into another player. Like it appeared they didn't know how to pass things off. I would chalk that up to not having Justin Reed back there for the first time in years. I think that mattered. Justin Reed's going to get them set a lot, and they were not. They were all over the place. Jaden Hicks, look, he's a really athletic kid, but he's got to be able to see the whole field better. There were too many times where he got distracted by an underneath route, and somebody just cleared right across his face. In the NFL, that's death against a good quarterback. That guy's going to see that and hit that 10 times out of 10. I felt like overall, look, the athleticism at safety, I think is not awesome, but enough. Now, we could have a different conversation about the linebacking group and their athleticism, but I think at some point here again, Connor, they're asking him to do something he cannot do. He can't play slot corner. He's not a slot corner. I think he's fine if you put him on the back end and you let him kind of roam. But if you're asking him to guard Vlad McConkey one-on-one, he's not going to do it. And so I think maybe you go to Connor and Cook deep, let Hicks kind of drop down and play that joker role, and then move McDuffie into the slot. And that way, look, if Bolton's in the middle of the field, you could still hurt him a little bit, but now McDuffie's there, maybe you drop Hicks down there, it changes the picture. If it's Connor and Bolton in the middle of the field, that's a freeway. I mean, everybody they play is going to throw at that part of the field.
Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated, SI.com, our NFL insider, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. How long is the leash on Jawan Taylor after that performance on Friday night?
Well, I think realistically speaking, if you were asking me how long I think it should be, I would be playing Jalen Moore this Sunday. And that's not to be reactionary. That's just genuinely how I feel. Like I have sat here and watched Jawan Taylor, like everybody else has watched the Chiefs, take 36 penalties over the past 2 years, which is by a mile the most in the NFL. Nobody else has taken more than 28. So this is a guy who has constantly and consistently hurt them with his mental errors, his physical errors at times when it comes to holding, stuff like that. And so, I think you look at that game, 4 penalties is ridiculous. 4 penalties shouldn't happen ever at any point. And this is not the first time he's taken 4 penalties in a game. So there is no excuse for for the mental lapses that Jawan Taylor has. Hey, look, man, this is completely unacceptable. It can't happen. But to be frank, we've seen this happen with the Chiefs repeatedly with Jawan Taylor, and nothing changes. So I think that he should be on the shortest of all leashes. But my guess is, knowing the Chiefs, he's probably sitting there with at least a couple weeks of leeway, if not more.
Based on what you saw from the Chiefs, from the Eagles in their opening win over the Cowboys, and the knowledge that the Chiefs are probably going to be without both Rashee Rice, definitely without Rice, and almost certainly without Xavier Worthy for Sunday, what is the path to victory for the Chiefs to avoid an 0-2 start?
I think it's got to be that you play a hell of a lot better defensively. Realistically, they're not going to win this game or even come close to it if they put out a defensive performance like that. Philadelphia's too good. Brown and Smith were held down by Dallas. And I think, look, you could do a little bit of that because Philadelphia really struggled with Dallas's own looks. I think you can blitz Philly. That's an odd thing with them. Normally you blitz really good offense, kind of kill doing that. The Chiefs have done that in the past and had success against Hurts. Now, not in obviously the last Super Bowl, but they've done it at times. I think if they can play better defensively, and they're not great, but just solid, good, they'll have a shot in the sense that Philadelphia defense was not exactly the 85 Bears on Thursday night. I mean, there were plays to be made in that game. The big question is going to be, without Worthy, without Rice, do they have enough? Brown, to his credit, really stepped up after an early drop against the Chargers. Juju and Thornton, I think, gave you what you could hope that they'd give you, which is basically 100 yards between them. Kelsey had one big catch and then did absolutely nothing. The rest, they're going to need more from Kelsey. But the one thing I would point to in this game, and this is not just the Eagles game, it's in general, the Chiefs have got to try to run the ball more. You can't just go into a game and give Kareem Hunt and Pacheco 5 carries apiece and just call it good. That's not – you're not taking any pressure off the offensive line of Mahomes. And I think that's part of the problem. You get into these spots where Mahomes just has to be Superman. And he can do it a lot of the time, and that's great. But that shouldn't be the default setting for the offense. I think sometimes it is. So, look, it's going to be tough. I would tell you, though, even if they go to 0-2, if they start getting healthier, they'll be all right. They'll figure it out. They're too talented not to. But yeah, if they go to 0-2, it's a hole they're going to have to climb out of. But they can avoid it if they play better defense.
We're talking to Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated and SI.com here on 580 Sports Talk, recapping Week 1 of the NFL season. I got to say, I think if there's anything that was concerning, the most concerning thing for the Chiefs coming out of the weekend, I don't think it was anything that happened in Sao Paulo. I think it was everything that happened in Orchard Park last night, because the Bills and the Ravens put on a show that suggested those were the two best teams in the AFC.
Yeah, look, I've seen that a few places, and I get it. I'd also sit there and argue, though, are we judging the whole team or is this their offense? Because Buffalo gave up 9 yards of play in that game. Buffalo's defense was horrific. I mean, really, look, understandably and I guess correctly, it gets obscured by the fact they won. And give them credit, they found a way to win the game. Buffalo's defense was comically bad in that game. Baltimore blew a double-digit lead. If the Chiefs had lost the way Baltimore lost, would anybody feel good about the Chiefs this morning? Would anybody sit there and be like, "Oh, that was a great game"? But people in Kansas City would be horrified if they lost a game like that, right? I would argue, hell, I'd rather lose the way the Chiefs lost than lose that way. Now, the other part of it is, yes, offensively, give all the credit in the world. Both teams lit up the scoreboard. But I guess maybe naively, I'm kind of to the point with both of them. Call me when they beat the Chiefs in January, because I've seen this done before. I've seen the Bills look unbelievable. I've seen the Ravens go 14-2 in a regular season and be dominant and be a DVOA darling. I'm not saying it wasn't a great game. It was a great game. I wrote about it for SI. It was a terrific game. It was fun to watch. I think both teams offensively were unbelievable. But at the same point, I'd also argue, there was also some really hideous defense. And as bad as the Chiefs were defensively, they weren't as bad as either one of those two teams. I mean, that was horrific how bad that was. So, yes, look, it was a very exciting game. I personally didn't walk away from it saying, "Oh my God, how can the Chiefs compete with?" I mean, I got to say, if they get Rice and Worthy back and play one of those teams in the playoffs, they're going to hang 40 points on them. I mean,
don't think the Chiefs would watch that and be as intimidated as maybe the scoreboard would suggest.
There's a big NFC showdown as well yesterday. Green Bay taking care of business against Detroit. Was that game a bigger green flag for the Packers or a red flag for the Lions?
I think both. I watched that game, and I was super impressed with Green Bay. I'm going up there Thursday to cover the Thursday night game for SI, and I'm looking forward to that. I thought the Packers were efficient offensively. They weren't dominant or like super dynamic, but Love played well. I thought the offensive line did a really nice job. They ran effectively. Their numbers weren't overwhelming, but they ran effectively in the game. But I thought defensively was where the Packers, even though Parsons was on a pitch count, so to speak, every time he was on the field, he made an impact. It was instant pressure. And I think that now to go to the other side of the coin is where if I was Detroit, listen, you'll lose in Green Bay. Okay, you're 0-1. Just like I said about the Chiefs or the Raiders, you're 0-1. Those teams all, barring injuries, they're going to make the playoffs. And by January, nobody's going to carry a loss to Week 1. But what I would say that would scare me if I was Detroit, the interior of that offensive line was a disaster. They couldn't run. They couldn't block up front with Goff. And Goff is a statue. Goff is not Lamar or Mahomes or Allen. There's pressure in the middle. It plays over. And so I'd worry about that if I'm Detroit, along with, look, let's be real. That offense did not look anything like it did with Ben Johnson. There was no imagination, was very cookie cutter. And that's, combined with a much weaker offensive line, that scares you because Goff kind of needs that extra spice, if you will. If he doesn't have that, that is a very easy team to defend because you sit there and go, look, take away the run and make him go down the field and beat you, and you'll take your chances, even with all the talent in that offense. So I think good sign for the Packers for sure. Very concerning for the Lions in the sense that some of that stuff can get cleaned up. The offensive line, though, that might be what it is.
We're joined by Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated. And Matt, former Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, kind of redemption mode. He looked like a Packer quarterback that he did, or quarterback when he used to play for the Packers. Vintage performance, 4 touchdowns, 250 yards nearly. Do you think he can keep any of this remotely up during the season?
I think he'll be better this year than he was with the Jets because the Steelers are better. Jets, they're better coached. They have more talent. I don't think he's going to be throwing 4 touchdowns a week, obviously, but I think, listen, he could have a good year. Now, if you're the Steelers, there's a couple different ways to look at that game. One is you're very happy. You won, scored in the 30s. The other thing is, though, on the flip side, if you're going to look at, like Rodgers had a terrific game, don't get me wrong. Their offense as a whole, even though they scored all those points, the underlying numbers aren't awesome. Like the Jets had a muff kickoff late in the game, or I fumbled the kickoff late in the game. It set up, they had a 60-yard field goal at the end. I mean, the Steelers kind of had to escape with that game. Now, they did it. And in the NFL, a win's a win. You move on. You're happy with it, especially on the road, especially week 1 when things are weird. But I'll be curious to see kind of how the Steelers move forward. I think they're a team that they're a little bit of a wild card in the AFC in the conference that I still firmly believe, even though 2 of these 3 teams are 0-1, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City are the 3 best teams. And watching Denver, watching Houston, watching Cincinnati, certainly did not change my opinion to that. So, or God, Miami, that also did not change my opinion. Wow. So Tyreek Hill on line 1, by the way, if I was Fred Beach, I would call them up tonight. Like, what do you want? Woof. But yeah, no, look, I think the Steelers, they should be encouraged.
Matt Verderame covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Also, That Football Show on the KC Sports Network. The Matt Verderame Show on Patreon, and right here, Mondays, recapping the NFL action on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, always a pleasure. Enjoy Lambeau Thursday night. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
That is Matt Verderame. We'll step aside for a timeout, come back and wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk after this. Our thanks again to Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated, our NFL insider here on 580 Sports Talk. We've only got one more hour with you today. We're off at 5 for Royals baseball. First pitch at 5:40 from Progressive Field tonight as the Royals open a 3-game series against the Cleveland Guardians. No Bobby Witt Jr. in the lineup for a third straight day. Royals are just trying to get to the finish line. Still only 2 games out of a playoff spot, but taking injury hits left and right. Bobby Witt Jr. dealing with some back tightness. We're going to talk some college football in the 4 o'clock hour. It was not a great weekend of football around these parts, and that certainly extended from Friday night and the Chiefs loss into Saturday with both KU and K-State losing. We'll try and pick up the pieces from K-State's loss to Army and KU's loss in the border war to Mizzou. We'll also have some What Is Wrong With You, and we'll take our own look at what transpired in week 1 of the NFL. A quick update to our picks contest. We did not have a winning week among us this week. Although Spencer broke even, the Marshall cover streak ended in shocking fashion, but she gave us 2 winners from the Commanders game, went 2-2-1 on the week. So
unfortunately, I won't be able to give you any this week because our bet segment's Friday.
Right.
And they play Thursday.
Well, you'll give us your pick on Thursday. Brendan went 1-4. That's rough. I had 2 pushes. El Asico, Iowa +3 push. Sunday Night Football, Baltimore +1. I can't believe that pushed. I went 1-2-2. College football coming up next hour, the final hour today on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Second and final hour of this Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. No, we haven't had our hours cut. It's just going to feel like it this week because the Royals are out east. So early start times for Royals baseball throughout this week. And that includes today. We're off at 5 o'clock for Royals baseball. So just one more hour of sports talk today here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and of course on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, hanging out with you for one more hour today, and we'll cram in as much as we can in this last hour before we give it off to the Royals Baseball Network. 5 o'clock pregame, 5:40 first pitch in Cleveland tonight. The Royals coming off of a winning series against Minnesota. Go figure this. The Royals, who never beat Pablo Lopez on Friday night. And then they really never beat Joe Ryan, and they tuned him like a piano on Saturday.
Wow.
5 runs in the first inning on their way to a routine win. And then on Sunday, they faced a guy that they never lost to, Bailey Ober, and Ober beat him.
Hey, it's okay, though, because
Go figure.
they scored 11 runs on national TV.
They did do that. Unfortunately, none of those carried over to the next night. They
No.
could have used a handful of those. So the Royals find themselves at 73-70, still 2 games behind Seattle, who has won back-to-back games after really stumbling. Still 2 games out of a playoff spot with the season dwindling, just 19 games to go for the boys in blue. No Bobby Witt Jr. for this one tonight. They are hopeful that he can get back to action. The words used by Matt Quatrero this afternoon in his media availability were sooner rather than later, and there's a chance that he could be available to pinch hit tonight if he tests well. But no Bobby Witt Jr. tonight. Ryan Berger is on the mound trying to continue his fine work since joining the Royals. Slade Ciccone, I think is how you say that name, is the starting pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians. I'm going to double check that. Ciccone, excuse me, and soft C's.
Yeah.
Slade Ciccone is the starting pitcher for the Guardians. So that starts at 5:40. That means we have just until the bottom of this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. We're into What Is Wrong With You. We'll talk NFL Week 1 in a little bit, but we do have lots of college football to talk about. None of it good. Again, as Mark H. reminds us in the YouTube comments, usually we come back. Last week, we got really used to it. Victory Monday! Play Pitbull! No Victory Monday for anybody around these parts. So we want to hear from you. The text line is open, 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us in the YouTube chat. Again, the name of the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe if you have not already. Smash that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything but a click. It is 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, and we appreciate hearing from everybody in the YouTube chat today. Kansas State 21, Army 24 on Saturday. And we would be remiss if we did not begin with a big old tip of the cap to the troops, because Army played a perfect second half of football. Army knows whenever they play a Power 4, they are outmanned. They don't have better players than you can recruit to a school in the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, or ACC. They know that. And so their whole goal when they play a team who is in the Power 4 is to simply not let that team's best players participate in the football game. And that is precisely what Army was able to accomplish. Kansas State had the ball twice in the entire second half. A 4-play drive that ended in a punt, and their 2-minute drill drive when they were trailing that ended in the interception from Avery Johnson that caromed off the hands of Joe Jackson in the flat. It was a perfect second half of football. If Army gets 4 yards or 5 yards on first down, they will keep the ball forever, and there is nothing you can do about it. They got into easily makeable 3rd and 4th downs. They made a gutsy special teams play on the onside kick. Once again, even on a night where something went right for K-State's special teams. The kick return by Bryce Nornberg that put them back in the lead in the third quarter. Something still went wrong for Kansas State's special teams. Another blemish on the face of what used to be special teams. It was flawless. They were 6 of 7 on fourth down because all they ever needed on fourth down was a yard. And the thing about that triple option is they can get a yard. They can get a yard against anybody. They can get a yard against the 85 Bears. They get a yard against whoever you are. They know how to get a yard. And their quarterback, Cole Helms, was tough as hell. They were the better team on Saturday. They deserved every bit of that 24-21 win. As for K-State, there's a bit of an outlier feeling to that game because they will not play another team that can or will or wants to do that to them. There are only 4 teams in the country that run anything like that triple option offense. Rice is running it this year. I don't know if people know. But it's just the service academies other than that. And only the service academies have the discipline to do it over and over and over and over and over and over again the way Army did on Saturday. So there is a flukish element. Kansas State will not play another game this season where they only have 2 second-half possessions. They will not have another game this season where their offense is on the sideline for over an hour of real time. It is, as you can imagine, not easy to keep rhythm when that is the case. That is all true. That being said, there is no denying now that this season is in the sewer for the Wildcats, and I don't know where. It could go anywhere from here. You could have a strong and resilient program led by a coach who has been a consistent winner wherever he has been and a champion in college football decide the buck stops here. We're putting this thing back in the road. We're starting it with a win on the road at Arizona on Friday, and we'll go from there. We'll take it one game at a time. The playoffs not happening unless you win the Big 12. Winning the Big 12 doesn't feel particularly likely right now. Don't worry about the big picture. Got to take it one game at a time. It could go in that direction. It could. It could also go really bad from here. This is where you could have the finger pointing. This is where you could have the backbiting. This is where a locker room that expected more and is getting these results could turn. And Kansas State now is the latest case study in what is becoming a trend. The teams that go to Ireland and lose in week 1 or week 0 do not come back the same. Florida State went 2-10 last year. At this stage, 3 years ago, Nebraska fired their coach. It goes bad for teams that go to Ireland and lose to the point where if I'm an AD and I got my team booked for Ireland in the next 2 seasons, I'm trying to see how ironclad that contract is.
Yeah.
And if somebody's calling me about, hey, would you like to take your team to Ireland in 2028? I say, yeah, for a week's vacation in May, sure. Not to play no damn football game. No, thank you. But I'll say this. This does not feel like it's going to turn into 2024 Florida State. We can definitively say that Kansas State is not as good as we thought. They are not a particularly good football team right now. I also don't believe that they're bad. I don't believe that they're going to go 2-10. If you look at things like win expectancy, success rate, things like that, Kansas State's unfortunate in some ways not to be 3-0. They've been in 3 one-score games. They're 1-2 in one-score games. They're 1-2 in one-score games. Either of those games could go differently. If somehow that laser-guided kickoff late in the third quarter goes through the legs of the up man, we're talking about something completely different, potentially. Yeah. We could be talking about something different if Jerron Tibbs's catch and fumble had actually been ruled correctly. Kansas State actually should have had that. They would have liked to have had that call overturned on the field because then Navy would have gotten the ball or Army would have got the ball, but K-State would have had a timeout and the 2-minute warning and at least a chance to get the ball back, which they did not have after they threw. But I don't think this is last year's Florida State. It might be last year's Kansas. That might be what we're dealing with here. That might be what we have. We might have a team that can't get the close games over the line. What did we say all year about Kansas last year when they started 1-5? Well, they're the best 1-5 team I've ever seen. I do not think that Kansas State is bad. Like, you know what bad football teams look like. I don't think a team with that much talent on it is bad, but I do not think they are good. And I think they are quite a long way from being good, and they do not have a lot of time to figure it out between now and Friday when they have to go. Can we talk about this scheduling? I know Chris Kleiman and Gene Taylor are buddies, but I can't imagine Chris Kleiman and Gene Taylor are on speaking terms regarding the schedule this year. You got to go to Ireland, and then you come back and play an FCS team from the Dakotas. It doesn't matter. If that's an FCS team with Dakota in its name, you got to pack a lunch when you play those guys. That's not a fun one. Then Army right after that, and then after being on the field for what felt like 3,000 offensive plays, your defense on a short week traveling across 2 time zones to go play Friday on the road against Arizona. That is not setting your team up for success.
A non-conference game of that, too.
Yes, it's a non-conference game. And so there are lots of ways you can look at this. Like I have a text from the 785 right here says, they're one play against North Dakota away for being 0-3. And that is true. But they're also 1 4th down stop. One. If they get 1 4th down stop against Army, I think they win that game. Army was 6 of 7 on 4th down. They get 1 4th down stop against Iowa State. Maybe they win that game too. We're talking about very fine margins here. That's usually the case in 1-score games. And I mean, you've seen what Iowa State has done since their trip to Ireland. They've come out firing and they've won their last 2. And that looks like that's the only team in the Big 12 that has any chance of an at-large bid to the playoff. If it's not them, it's nobody. It is over for the Big 12 in the greater playoff conversation. They're going to get their champion, and that's it at this point, unless it's Iowa State. The national relevance of the Big 12 did not make it past week 2. Not when your defending champ goes and chokes on applesauce and loses in Starkville to a Mississippi State team I'm not sure is very good. A Mississippi State team, it should be said, that Arizona State barely beat last year at home on their way to winning the Big 12 championship. So that's done. You could set all that stuff aside. If we're talking about the playoff, it's going to be in the headlines when we give you the playoff rankings, and that's it. We're not talking playoff around here anymore. Playoff for the Big 12, not happening. It's not happening. But K-State finds himself in an impasse, at an impasse. What is it going to be? And it depends on the leadership. It depends on the coaches, but they can still decide. They got 9 games to decide. Because like I said, I don't think that they are going to – I have a very hard time seeing this team turning into last year's Florida State where they go 2-10.
Yeah.
Or they go 4-8 and they fire their coach. Like that's not what we're going to – I don't think that's what we're going to see here. I would be very, very surprised. But it could end up being looking like 2024 Kansas. And that does surprise me that we're there with this team. So incredibly frustrating loss. Incredibly frustrating to watch. Look, Kansas State's best players didn't get to play. Like, that's just it. That's why Army won. They looked across the sideline and said, Avery Johnson's the best quarterback in this game. They got the best wide receivers in this game. What if we just don't let them participate? What if we just take them out of the game altogether by not letting them be a part of the game? And that's usually the Army game plan. It doesn't always work that way. Otherwise, they'd never lose to a Power 4 team. If it worked that well every time, they'd never lose. But incredible stuff from Army. And for K-State, this is the other part that it boils down to for me, for K-State. It is wonderful that they have upped their ability to recruit upper echelon skill position players, that they have a 4-star quarterback in Avery Johnson and a 4 or 5-star running back in Dylan Edwards and a 5-star tight end we have yet to see make his debut in Lincoln Cure. Those are all good things. It is good that Kansas State is recruiting a higher level of athlete, particularly at the skill position players, because those guys help you win games. You have to have basketball, football, any sport. You have to have dudes. But do you know where you give yourself a little bit more margin for error? In the trenches. Kansas State doesn't have an NFL offensive lineman, and Kansas State doesn't have an NFL defensive lineman. They don't. And you want to get a stop in 4th and 1? NFL defensive tackles help you get those stops on 4th and 1. They help you get off the field. Or they help you get a tackle for a loss on some of those option plays. They beat their blocker. You know who helps you get into 3rd and short instead of living in 3rd and 8 like this Kansas State team seems to, because they have too many negative run plays or run plays that don't go anywhere? NFL offensive linemen. This is a program where the standard has slipped in the trenches. They don't have enough guys in the trenches. I don't know how much of a percentage of the NIL budget is directed towards the beef, but I don't know. Kansas farmers, I don't know if you guys are writing NIL checks for some K-State beef, but maybe somebody needs to, because that's where this program is lacking the most right now. They don't have enough in the trenches to make up for, not to make up for, they don't have enough in the trenches to make sure that they don't lose by the margins that they are losing. That when they need a yard, they get it. When the other team needs a yard, they don't. That's where you make sure that you win these close games. And even then, you're not going to win them all. No program ever does. Sometimes you just catch a bad break in a bunch of one-score games, like Kansas last year. But that's kind of where this thing feels like it's headed right now for K-State. But they got 9 games left to write a different ending. Speaking of Kansas, they lose the border war. It was a very entertaining football game. KU came out hot, and they had the 21-6 lead, and they're feeling good on the road. But you look at the box score, and this was a bit of a box score beatdown. Mizzou was much more prolific offensively, gained nearly 600 yards of offense, and it's what we sort of thought would be the case when looking at this game. Mizzou was better in the trenches. Mizzou got after Jalen Daniels. They couldn't really protect Jalen Daniels. They couldn't really run the ball all that effectively. Jalen Daniels was the leading rusher for KU with 17 net rushing yards on 10 carries. And up front, Mizzou overwhelmed Kansas's defensive line. They kept Bo Perbula clean. And by the way, that kid can play. Honest to goodness, I'm a little surprised he didn't get the job over Drew Aller in Penn State, because I've watched a lot of Drew Aller. I'd take that kid over Drew Aller. Honest to goodness. I know Aller had the recruiting pedigree. Right now, if you're asking me to pick, I'd take Perbula. He was awesome in that game, arm and legs. And I think the result is part of a broader trend that we are seeing, that we saw in the Baylor-Auburn game, that we saw in the Arizona State-Mississippi State game, that the gap, in fact, has not been closed between the Big 12 and the SEC. That is annoying as it is to hear about the SEC, and it just means more, and they get all the media coverage, and they get all the attention. They got better players than the Big 12 teams do, because these are would-be Big 12 contenders losing to teams that are probably going to finish around the middle of the pack in the SEC. Like, Mizzou looks solid. Mizzou looks like they could win 8 games in the SEC. That'd be a good year. After back-to-back 10-win years with the talent drain that they've had, they win 8 this year. It's a hell of a year for Eli Drinkwitz and Mizzou. They look like about an 8-win team. Auburn could be about an 8-win team. Mississippi State, I don't know what the hell that was. What did Arizona State think the back judge was the over-the-top safety help on that deep touchdown to win the game? What the hell was that? Kenny Dillingham? My goodness. But it's just part of the larger trend. The SEC has the dudes. The Big 12 still operates at a talent deficit relative to the SEC. And we were hoping that gap would be closed because of some really, really good quarterbacks in the Big 12. But I go back to the point I made about K-State. You got to have NFL guys in the trenches. You got to have big bodies who can move. And the SEC has more of those guys, both on offense and defense, than the Big 12 does. And the results are going to continue to be what they've been in the games between the Big 12 and the SEC as a result. That's why. It's why the SEC is going to get more teams in the playoff, and the Big 12 is going to get 1. And it's going to be their conference champion. And maybe 2 if Iowa State can escape unscathed. But I don't know, man. Like, they got a good win over Iowa. It's been a while since anybody had won the Cy-Hawk at home. That was a good win. Was it a particularly convincing, dominant performance? No, it was a slop fest. It always is. That's why they call it El Asico. The game is always sloppy. So, like, they're putting together the resume so far. They're the only team that's put together the resume that has the sort of wins in the national spotlight that put them in the playoff conversation. But do we think they're going to get through the Big 12 unscathed, or even with less than 1 Big 12 loss? I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not yet convinced. And if they don't, then it's going to be the Big 12 champ and nobody else from the league. And that's unfortunate, because I thought that the table was set for the Big 12 broadly to take a step forward in the national conversation this year. And we're 2 weeks in, and they've pratfalled. Every time they've had a national spotlight, they have pratfallen. That is a fact. Get to some comments in the YouTube comments. MPM points out Iowa State hasn't had any issues after coming home playing in Ireland. Yeah, the winning teams really haven't. It's been the losing teams. The trend is you come home from Ireland after a loss and your season goes in the sewer.
Yeah.
Like, it would be one thing if it was just this is happening to Kansas State, but Florida State went 2-10. Florida State, the Seminoles, that program, it went 2-10.
That prestigious of a program in the SEC.
They were completely broken by that loss in Ireland. They came in with those expectations. 2 weeks after they lost in Ireland, Nebraska gave up 650 yards to Georgia Southern at home, and Scott Frost had his key card deactivated before he finished shaking hands with Clay Helton after the game. Like, Navy got annihilated by Notre Dame in Ireland. They ended up with a losing season, finished out of a bowl. It's undeniable that there's a trend there, that the team that goes to Ireland and loses, for whatever reason, I'm not saying that I know why, I'm just saying that the trend line is impossible to follow. MPM also points out that Texas Tech and Utah could both be undefeated in the Big 12 championship game. I mean, we've seen Utah pile up some points first 2 weeks. UCLA also stinks. Like, they stink bad. UNLV kicked their butt. So that Utah win over UCLA lost a lot of luster with how UCLA looked. And Texas Tech, again, that's another program. And play anybody. I'll believe that when I see it. But I don't necessarily think those. I would not bet on anybody in the Big 12 being undefeated. I will tell you that right now. Yes, certainly, if that were the case, sure. But where are the spotlight games for those programs? Like, so much of this is perception. What are those? When have those programs been able to seize the national spotlight and show, hey, look how good we are? That is, unfortunately, because it's a made-for-TV product in the first place, that is as determinative of whether you get in the playoff as what your actual resume is. And we'll take a timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back. We'll do a little What Is Wrong With You. Then we'll come back after that. We'll finish up with some more thoughts on week 1 of the NFL, some stray college football thoughts. Your text, 785-272-9429. Your YouTube comments, we'll continue to take those and address those. But it's been a rough weekend on the football side. So we'll attempt a moment of levity with What Is Wrong With You here next on 580 Sports Talk. It's What Is Wrong With You time on 580 Sports Talk. New week of What Is Wrong With You. 2 new stories competing. Spencer, I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure mine's out of contention because it's a bad story. Like, it's a bad person story.
Okay.
But it's kind of funny in a way. A 46-year-old employee wearing an inflatable dog costume outside a Florida puppy store allegedly strangled a bike riding juvenile with whom he had an ongoing dispute with. Rodney Plathy, who works at Sunshine Puppies in Clearwater, was outside the business early Friday evening with multiple juveniles rode by on bicycles. At the time, he was a registered sex offender as well. He was wearing a puppy suit costume, cops reported. The business is adjacent to a busy roadway, and the costumed worker had a sign, was a sign spinner serving to attract attention of passing motorists. Investigators alleged that he had previously tangled with the young riders, waved the juveniles over to him. He was joined outside by the store owner. The owner was addressing the group. One of the juveniles sought to ride away. As the owner grabbed the bike's handlebars to prevent a collision with him, Plathy approached the victim from behind and placed him in a chokehold. The male victim, whose age is not listed in court records, told police he was unable to breathe for a period of time until the defendant released him seconds later. Officers were then contacted. Plathy was arrested for battery by strangulation, a felony. The defendant, according to an arrest affidavit, showed indication of alcohol influence and refused to speak with police. After 2 days in county jail, he was freed upon a $10,000 bond. A judge ordered him to have no contact with the victim. He's got an extensive rap sheet, obviously, as a registered sex offender.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah, so not a good guy.
Not a good guy. No.
But the idea of a 46-year-old man wearing a puppy costume getting in a fight with a child, that sounds like something out of a Will Ferrell movie.
Yes.
That sounds like, the end of Step Brothers, where Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly go back to the playground.
Yeah.
Those kids that made John C. Reilly's character lick the poop, and then they beat those kids up. Yeah. That's what I was thinking about the entire time. Ah, yes, there's my nemesis, a child riding a bike. Now, like, juvenile could be like, 15, 16. They're big 15, 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, kid was probably carrying ID, but still very funny. A 46-year-old just has ongoing beef with a child.
Yes, like that.
And try to choke him out wearing a puppy suit. That's very funny.
He tried to choke him out because he tried to leave and then run into the store owner. So he goes behind him and just.
That's wild.
Yeah.
All right. My story today, we're going to Fort Pierce, Florida, where police arrested a man wielding machete at a Walmart after he injured an officer during a confrontation on Saturday. 9:15 p.m., police department responded to a report of a male with a machete at the Walmart. Naturally. I've never understood how many machete stories we end up with. Like, I understand, like, people keep their guns on them. Some states have different open carry rules than other states. Some people feel like they got to have their guns on them at all time. I don't understand it, but the law is the law. And if you're allowed, go ahead. Second Amendment, freedom, USA, all those things. Like, I'm not standing in anybody's way. Not for me, but not for me doesn't mean it has to be not for thee. Machetes, I don't get. Why you would keep a knife on you, like a machete knife, like pocket knife, switchblade. Okay, that's one thing. You never know when you might have to cut an apple, right? Or do some whittling. But a machete? Anyhow, officers got to the scene promptly. He began to swing the machete violently as the officers approached the individual. After a brief struggle, officers placed the subject into custody. One officer suffered a laceration to the arm, was transported to a local hospital. He was expected to make a full recovery. The suspect was identified as 33-year-old Lawrence Fountain, and he faces numerous charges, being held at St. Lucie County Jail. Just decided to bring the machete to Walmart.
Yeah.
Don't really understand. So yeah, the guy who choked out the child in a puppy costume, he wins today. I know he's not a good guy.
He's not a good guy.
And it's a beatable story, but it's a really good story.
Yeah.
It's a really funny image, and it will last a day here.
It just sucks because you never want to have a story about
with the
sex offender
yeah,
guy.
Honestly, I wish you hadn't told us. I know it's at the bottom of the story for us to read, but you have to tell everybody. you know?
Well, I mean, it reads it in the third line of the story.
Oh, that's true.
At the time, Plathy, a registered sex offender, was wearing a puppy suit costume.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I'll withhold further comment until tomorrow. That's our winner for Monday here on What Is Wrong With You. We'll come back. Got some more college football and NFL Week 1 thoughts coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. .440 on 580 Sports Talk. We're with you till 5. We've only got 20 more minutes together. We're going to hand it off to the Royals Baseball Network at 5 o'clock. Royals and Guardians from the, not the Jake. I almost called it the Jake. It'll always be Jacobs Field to me. From the Prague Progressive Field in Cleveland. Slade Ciccone, the starting pitcher for the Guardians. I got it right that time. Ryan Bergert on the bump for Kansas City, who will be without Bobby Witt in the lineup for a third straight day dealing with that back injury. Royals enter today 2 games out of a playoff spot in the American League. Some other thoughts from listeners today. We were discussing K-State and their loss to Army. There's no denying this has become a trend under Chris Kleiman. Every year. This is the 7th time now since 2000, or maybe since 19, maybe since his first year. But it's the 7th time that Chris Kleiman's Wildcats have lost a game as a double-digit favorite. They were 16.5-point favorites against Army. And those are the games you can't be losing. You have to find ways to win those games. Now, look, that was a weird game. That was a lightning strike kind of game where you could play that game 99 more times, and Kansas State is never only going to have 2 second-half possessions. It was a little bit of a freak occurrence. But at the end of the day, you got to find a way defensively to get off the field on 4th and 1. And this team can't get off the field on 4th and 1 and can't put itself in better offense positions. Frankly, they're just not good enough in the trenches. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but you got to address it. And for the season, for what you have right now, you can only address it with who's on hand.
Yeah.
Like you can't go sign a free agent right now. You can't go make a trade. You got to solve it with who's in the building. And you have to get better. And you have a text from the 785 that asks about Chris Kleiman, whether or not he's on the hot seat. Our pal Tim Fitzgerald, who we'll talk to on Wednesday, he does daily YouTube videos, the daily delivery with GoPowerCat.com. You should subscribe to their YouTube channel and then go subscribe to our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. You should subscribe to both channels, especially if you're a K-State fan. And he made the analogy that if your house takes on some water damage, you don't fix it by burning the whole thing down. And that's kind of where K-State is at. Kansas State has been a consistently winning football program under Chris Kleiman, and they are off to a bad start this year. And they may not be as good as we thought they were going to be. And look, I don't think they're bad. Like, I don't think they're bad. Like, we know what bad looks like. Like, there are bad teams in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, oh my God, they're bad. West Virginia, they're bad.
They just lost their best player on offense.
Yeah, Jaheim White's out for the bad and trending worse.
Yeah.
UCF is bad. I do not think Kansas State belongs in that conversation. But, like, maybe they do. Maybe they do. We got evidence first 3 games this year that suggests that they might. So we'll see. I'm not ready to call them bad yet, but the results have certainly been bad. At the same time, this has been a consistently winning program under Chris Kleiman, and they've had 3 bad games to start this season. That's water damage. Don't burn the house down. That's I'm right there with Tim Fitzgerald on that. I do not think now there may need to be some full-scale coaching staff changes after this season, and they certainly may have to reevaluate how are we recruiting, how are we developing linemen, offensive linemen, defensive line. They got to go get some more NFL guys up front. Like it's been a while. Cooper Beebe is a second-year NFL player. Dalton Reisner's been in the league long enough to get to a second contract and a third. You have to have better players up front. They got some guys who are fine, and that's nice. Like, I'm not trying to throw the entire baby out with the bathwater here. Like I said, I think Kansas State has some fine players in the trenches, but they don't have studs, and studs are the ones that get you off the field on 4th and 1. So that's where I'm at with K-State. But that's where I'm at. And the other thing too is I'm not going to be the guy, and if this disappoints you, I apologize. I'm never going to be the guy that opens up this microphone and says that a coach ought to be fired. And the reason I'm not going to do that, and I may have used to have been that guy, but I've had a change of heart on that. Like, I really solidified my position on not being that guy.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm not going to be that guy is because I'm not in front of them often enough. I don't get to the media availabilities every week. I don't get to the games every week. And I feel like if you're going to sit behind a microphone and say this guy needs to be fired on a Monday morning, then I should have been looking him in the eye on Monday morning before I did it on Monday afternoon. Or I should have been looking him in the eye on Saturday night. I wasn't there Saturday night. So until and unless I get to the point where I'm always around a team, that's when I'll feel comfortable calling for guys' jobs. But I don't. That's me. That's probably too inside baseball, and you don't care. But that's where I'm coming from on that. But even with that, I do not believe now is the time to start calling for people's heads. We'll see where we're at. They got 9 games to rewrite the ending of this season. It has not been a very promising beginning, but they got 9 games to right the ship. And the fact that it'd be one thing if they lost 38-0 to Army, but they lost by 3 points in a game where they barely touched the ball in the second half. I don't think the sky is all the way falling.
Close.
It's not good.
No.
I'm not here to pretend it's sunshine and rainbows, but I don't think it's the apocalypse either.
Yeah,
it's it just feels that way because the expectations were so high.
I think if the schedule worked out in their favor, which it clearly didn't because they had this game for Ireland moved from conference play.
Mm-hmm.
You should have had a bye week either last week or the week prior.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. It was very funny today. There was some reporting that the Chiefs are considering they would like to play.
Yeah.
The Chiefs want to play internationally as much as possible. They want to be the world's team, apparently. The Chiefs have their eyes on world domination. And a site that is being proposed for a future Chiefs game is Ireland, perhaps as soon as 2026. And it was very funny to see K-State and Chiefs fans reacting on social media saying, if I may steal the line from the International Players Anthem and Andre 3000, stop, don't do it, reconsider, read some literature on the subject. You sure? Don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, speaking of the NFL, we talked about the Chiefs. I don't know that there's long-term consternation, but it was a very unprepared football team, and they've got to get a lot better on the back end. And we'll talk about ways they can get better on the back end as we go along this week. The rest of the league, Buffalo and Baltimore played the best game of the weekend, as we kind of thought they might. Buffalo comes back from 15 down, help of a Derrick Henry fumble, a guy who never fumbled. And they come back, and they win that game 41-40. And it was fourth and less than 3, fourth and about 2.5 yards on Baltimore's final possession. And I know that Lamar Jackson had been dealing with a little bit of cramp at the end of that game. But I think if that had been the Chiefs, Harbaugh goes for it. Because I think Patrick Mahomes has the reputation of, if I give him the ball, I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
If I let him decide the game, no matter how I feel about my defense, if I let that guy decide the game, I'm going to get beat. It is well past time to start treating Josh Allen the same way, at least from September through December. It is time to start treating Josh Allen as the boogeyman and playing keep away from him and being more aggressive with your fourth down strategy in games against Josh Allen, because that dude will beat you. He's throwing to plumbers, man. That wide receiver group, it's Keon Coleman and a bunch of guys. And even Keon Coleman, we don't know that he's a guy yet. He just looked like one last night because Jair Alexander might be like cooked. Like he was terrible, especially on that final drive. But I really believe you got to start giving Allen the Mahomes treatment, which is to say, again, I'm talking September through December here, which is to say, if I'm in a close game, I got to do everything I can, even if it means gambling more than a coach might like to gamble. I got to make sure he doesn't see the ball again, because if he sees the ball again, he's going to beat me.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. That was an awesome game. Other notable results from week 1 of the NFL. Green Bay looks terrifying. They beat up on the Lions. They got pressure after pressure on Jared Goff up the middle. Jordan Love played extremely well. That was a message-sending week 1 win for the Packers.
Yeah, I think Micah Parsons outperformed what people thought he would do this week, right? Because you came into the week not knowing how much of a pitch count was he going to be on, and was he going to play at all, and was this an actual injury? It didn't appear like he actually really had an injury because he had a sack in the third or fourth quarter of the ball game. As a Commanders fan, I am scared for Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is dominated against the Commanders. I think he has 9 or 10 sacks against them in his career.
That is, that is the big Thursday night game coming up. Your Commanders 1-0. Congratulations. The Giants, I don't know how much longer they're going to let Russ cook.
I don't know how much longer they're going to have a head coach.
It sounds like Brian Daboll is going to go with Russell Wilson for week 2. They're going to give Daboll plenty of time with Dart. At least they can't have many more games that look like that, because they were still competitive in that game because of their defense for the better part of it, even though they could not move the ball a lick.
No, I mean,
it looks over for my guy Russ, man.
Yeah, he is cooked.
Oh, geez.
I mean, he's cooked against the Commanders, the Washington as a team when he was with the Seahawks a bunch.
Oh yeah,
he was.
I remember it fondly. Yeah,
and I thought it was going to be an interesting game yesterday against the corners, but the Commanders' corners played pretty darn good against. I mean, Neighbors. I was scared for mid-league Neighbors, but at the end of the day, I shouldn't have been. they pretty much shut him down.
Couple of other quick thoughts on some week 1 games. Jets-Steelers seems the most likely to be the game that we look back on in week 18 and say, like, what in the hell happened in that game?
Yeah.
Video game numbers for Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields. I'm going to pump the brakes on the Aaron Rodgers is back train.
Look, I'm going to say this right now. I think I texted it to you guys yesterday. Aaron Rodgers might not be washed on the field, but he sure is brainwashed, allegedly. Allegedly.
I don't think there's any allegedly about it. We've all heard him.
Hey, you always got to attach allegedly.
Sprinkle a little allegedly on it. You know who is cooked? The Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
That looks like the worst team in the NFL.
Trade Tyreek.
I think
get that contract off the books.
We may
half of it.
We may talk about that tomorrow on the show.
Yeah.
Whether or not it might be time for Brett Veach to bring Tyreek Hill home.
Can we
talk
about
what that would entail?
Can we talk about the resurgence of Danny Dimes?
He played really well.
Look, maybe he just needed to change the scenery.
But I think that's more about the Dolphins, to be honest. The Dolphins secondary is like you, me, and Brendan at cornerback. It's really bad.
He cooked them, though, for 3 total touchdowns.
He did, but I think that I do. I still think that's more about the Dolphins than I do think about Daniel Jones. Raiders and Broncos both won, so everybody in the AFC West 1-0 except the Chiefs. But I do not think that the Broncos in particular were very convincing. Bo Nix, frankly, was terrible in that win over the Titans. And lastly, try to tell you Sam Darnold stinks. Nobody would listen. Nobody would listen. Sam Darnold stinks, and the Seahawks are going to stink too. I'm going to have a really fun NFL year. I'll tell you that. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We will wrap up this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. We're wrapping up early for Royals baseball, so it's time for a final word. Spencer Dupuis.
Final word for me is Xavier Worthy is day-to-day in the eyes of
But
Andy.
aren't we all? Aren't we all in a
That's
day-to-day
true.
situation?
If Andy Reid says he's day-to-day, does that really mean day-to-day, or does that mean we just don't have enough information to really tell you, and we just want to put it out there that he's day-to-day? Who knows? But if he is long-term gone, I'm a little scared for this receiver core that we thought was looking good. I mean, you'll have Rashee Rice back here in a few weeks after missing his first game due to suspension there Friday, but it's tough to waste a Patrick Mahomes good performance, especially like he did in that final quarter doing Patrick Mahomes things on a loss. But hey, it's week 1. I believe they've lost now 2 of the last 3 week 1, so I'm not too worried. Give me a couple weeks and we'll see if I'm worried.
No, nothing to be worried about with just one loss. It's just one loss. It's a frustrating loss, certainly, and the Chiefs certainly have things that will be you would think easy fixes just as far as energy and preparedness and how you start a game. They can't start much worse than they did on Friday night. But as I watch the game, I'm taken by the fact that Patrick Mahomes, as good as ever, making plays with his legs, big time throws, evading pass rush, putting the team on his back. The Chiefs scored on their final 5 offensive possessions of the game once they got settled and got their sea legs and adjusted to not having Xavier Worthy after he was hurt on the 3rd offensive play of the game. Just feels like the infrastructure maybe isn't as strong around Patrick Mahomes right now. And that's the nature of the NFL. It's the nature of the salary cap and all of those things. But if Mahomes has to be awesome every week for the Chiefs to be in a game, I don't necessarily think that bodes particularly well, even if Mahomes is certainly capable of being awesome every week. Royals baseball next. We're back tomorrow from 3 to 5. For Spencer, I'm Dan. Good night.